All righty, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Red, White, Claret, and Blue Show with your hosts, Alex and Chris Pedro Pascal Condit, your American villain voices, and as always, serving up the lukewarmest of lukewarm opinions. Once again, Chris and I have a show that we would like to watch much more than we want to report Aston Villa news to you. So we're going to move quickly through this one and get ready for The Last of Us. Shout out once again HBO for keeping me happy on my Sunday evenings. Chris, how are you doing, sir? We both had a lot of travels. We barely talk anymore. We're both so busy
I
outside
know
of these.
it's funny. Yeah,
It's
I think we went several days with it, except for a handful of texts between the two of us, because we've been going around. But yeah, no, I'm very good. It was a nice weekend here in North Carolina, and my wife and I especially my wife, got a ton of yard work done today, which is what you do when the weather is nice in North Carolina, because in like a month it's going to be unbearable. And the Villa got a win, so I can't be better. How are you, Alex?
Yeah, man, I'm doing. It's been a good Sunday. We're headed out of town in a couple weekends to Asheville, so we went to go see a new dog sitter. Beautiful home in the country. They're gonna love it. She's a horse girl, so we got along great. I'm an avid horse girl. Um, and then we went for a nice little jog down to a coffee shop and got some chores done. And now you're dying, and I'm here talking to you. So like, what else? What else is there to talk about? Yeah,
I'm sorry that I'm an avid horse girl. It just really got me.
man.
I
It is hard to go horseback riding in the coffee mountains of Colombia and not become a horse girl after that. That's all I'll say to that.
you
Um,
gotta get yourself down to like Andrew, where they got all those rodeos and stuff, man. You can horse trade out there.
yeah, well, here's the thing. I just want to ride it through open fields and countryside. I don't really want to do anything with it. I'm not here to rope cattle. I'm not here to perform. Just put me on the horse instead of a bike and just like let me go.
Then you go.
And
All
I'm happy as a clam.
right.
Um, Speaking of horses and fun rides, yesterday morning was a fun ride watching Villa beat up on Southampton, wasn't it?
Not your best. Yes, it was. It
I
was.
tried. We didn't have much.
I was trying to see where you were going. It was it was great. The first half was a little on the frustrating side, but for me, I never really was all that concerned that the breakthrough wasn't going to come, because there was just so much pressure from Aston Villa, that you felt like eventually one of those corners, one of those set pieces, one of those line breaking type passes that would come early would end up breaking down Southampton, and that would change their shape and formation, and they would eventually have to come out and play a little more, because it was very clear that they were exclusively playing on the counter. They were not going to come out. They ceded possession consistently, and for the first half it worked very well, but it was too much pressure to overcome over 90 minutes. And then as soon as the first one came, the game really started to open up. So it kind of went exactly as I would expect it to. You would have liked to get it going a little earlier, but I was never all that worried.
Yeah, I suppose the headline is overall comfortable, comprehensive victory, right? It what what worried me, I suppose, as we kind of got to halftime, got the PK, missed it, and we'll get into that a little bit more, was the one stat that I think we all know. If we don't know, it's that 6 times under Emery, Villa have had 70+% possession. How many wins do they have in those 6 matches, Chris?
You
One.
tell me. Yeah.
And so, I was just worried that it was going to be another one of those where we have a ton of possession against a team that is clearly much, much worse than us, and we just can't seem to find the breakthrough. Now, thankfully, we did. Ultimately, we did not end the match with 70+% possession. So this doesn't necessarily go into that stat line, but I was just thinking that was in my head in the first half when I think they noted at some point we had like 82% possession in the first half.
Yeah.
And I was, oh God, this is going to be another one of those. Thankfully we found the breakthrough and, we got it in the end, but I do think that if we're going to talk bigger picture about all of that, probably is the next step in Villa's development is that they not just dominate games from a possession standpoint, but are able to kind of put teams away in those matches. That's something to discuss for another day. Where I really want us to start, though, is with the lineup. You and I have been picking apart the lineup every single match to try and ascertain what Emery is going to do in subsequent matches, how he feels about certain players, who's in his circle of trust, who's out of his circle of trust. And so I did a quick comparison. You and I nailed the PSG lineup perfectly, right? With McGinn, nailed the score perfectly, 3-1. And so I just looked at who started both matches. And that was Marcus Rashford, Morgan Rogers, JJ Ramsey, Yuri Tielemans, Ezri Konsa, and Matty Cash. Now, Morgan Rogers and Yuri, I think, is a no-brainer. It seems like they're probably, with Emi Martinez, the first two names on the team sheet. If they're healthy, they play. Yep. But I'm curious if you were at all surprised, or maybe better said, how you're reading into no Garcia, no Daniel Malin, and once again, no Ollie Watkins in the starting lineup.
Yep. So I will take those in reverse order. I'll start with Ollie Watkins because that's the big headline. Ollie not getting the start was a surprise.
Sorry, before you dive into this, can I specify one thing? Because I know that this has been the discourse online. I don't want you to just say the ends justify the means because he ultimately got on the pitch and scored a goal.
Oh, I wasn't going to say that.
I'm very curious about at the start him not being in there. So sorry, I'll let you take it from there.
So Ollie not getting on was a surprise to me, like it was previously leading up to PSG, and the fact that he hasn't started in four games, all comps now, I think. So I'm just surprised, given that we haven't had Rashford for long, and you've noted several times that Emery and Rashford both have specifically said Rashford did not come here to play striker, and now that's pretty much exclusively what he's playing. And so I'm only surprised at the fact that Ollie's not getting any starting run. And you've noted astutely that Emery doesn't necessarily like to change what's working. And so there may be some of that element to it, but at the same time, we have to rotate the squad, first of all. And secondly, it's not like Ollie Watkins is some throwaway player that you plug in whenever. He's still our leading goal contributor and has over 20 goal contributions this season. I think he's at 27 all comps. Do I have that right? That is straight off the top of my head, but I think I'm close.
You're stretching me here.
Yeah. No, I wasn't throwing that out to you as
10 assists, 25.
25. All right.
25 I was across Premier League and Champions League. So he's probably got a couple more
I'm sure he does have one or two somewhere else. Yeah. So I'm probably right at it. But yes. So anyway, that's the only surprise to me is that he can't get any start. I am glad to see that he got on the pitch and played and scored. What he admitted was a lucky goal, but he did get the goal and it went in. So I'm curious if the plan with Emery is to run Rashford pretty hard because he hadn't played much previous to this and he feels like he can. That's the one, I think, aspect that we really haven't looked at on this podcast yet, is that maybe Emery sees Rashford as a fairly fresh, fit player because he's not gotten a lot of minutes in the last, year. And we'll see if that continues to develop. I'd be surprised if we don't see some starts from Ollie Watkins. Daniel Malin, to move to him now, like I said, I'll take it in reverse order. I am surprised that he doesn't get starts to rotate the squad because like I've mentioned before, he's such a versatile player and you can use him pretty much at any position in front of the midfield. He'll play across the front, anywhere you want to put him. He prefers the right and straight up number 9 type role, but he can play anywhere. And you could see his effectiveness when he did come on. So I think the element of that is you bring him on against tired legs, and his speed really took over that game. He had Stevens on skates for the entire time that he was out there, and I think so. That was an effective use of a substitution, but I would, because he's just always so lively, even when he gets short minutes. I'd like to see him more in a starting role when we're in a position where we can rotate the squad. And if you can't rotate the squad against one of the worst teams in Premier League history, when do you rotate the squad? And I'm asking that question to the podcast gods, I guess. And you, Alex, you can answer that after I finish Garcia. That's another one, just because I would like to see Matty Cash get rest. And we know his injury history. He tends to pick up knocks and hamstrings and things like that. I'd like to see him rest against sides that we should easily beat. And I don't think in this situation, in this particular game against Southampton, that it's going to be that big of a drop off from one player to another, because they were never going to come out anyway. So it's not like we were going to be under this tremendous pressure where Garcia is going to have to really play well defending one-on-one or something like that. And to be honest, is he that big of a defensive downgrade over Cash anyway in the first place? And I say that as a man who loves Matty Cash, but I just think this was, again, a perfect opportunity to rotate the squad out. But we did win 3-0. I would have rotated all 3 of those players in to start, but I'm not the boss. So the one I'm most interested in your opinion, and you can take them all, but the one I want to know about the most is Daniel Malen, actually, instead of Ollie Watkins, because Malen to me is the biggest head scratcher. You can justify the Watkins one because it's been so effective. The Malen one, he's been so effective every time he gets on the pitch. Don't you want to see him more?
So just to verify what you were saying about Ollie Watkins, Ollie has 1 start in our past 5 matches in all comps. It was the Nottingham Forest one where he just made it over the 60-minute mark at 61. Prior to these 5, Club Bruges, he only made it 45. Before that, you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Previous 9 matches, he went 75 plus in all but one of them.
Yeah.
So something is going on between either a fitness issue that we're unaware of that has not been publicized, or something's Emery is not seeing something in him that he did previously. And I think this comes down to, as you said, and according to FBref, he's got 30 goal contributions across all competitions this year. What I said last pod, I would venture a guess that a majority of these are in games that Villa would otherwise dominate with or without him. Relegation teams, lower division in the different cups, things like that. I don't know that I want to throw a specific percentage on it, but I think in games where we've needed to score, that's probably where he's come up short. And obviously these are games where we need him to score. Now he did yesterday. But I think that might be Emery's thought. Daniel Malen. The thing with him is that you want to get Asensio some minutes and maybe give some of those other attackers a rest. Morgan Rogers, as I said, probably one of the first 3 names on the team sheet. He's not coming out, no matter who we're playing against. So you look at the last one, and it's Jacob Ramsey. And I think he's been hit or miss over the past few games where he started to get these starts and come in as a sub. I wonder to what extent, at least right now, Emery sees him as a more important player than Daniel Malin because he's still eligible for the Champions League.
Mm-hmm.
And so just trying to coax some form out of him. I'm with you along the back line. If we're going to rotate all 4 defenders to play Nottingham Forest, who are in 3rd in the league, why would you not rotate all 4 defenders to play against, to your point, Southampton, who are, it may go down as the 2nd worst team in Premier League history in terms of point total? I don't get it. I don't have a good answer for you for why no Daniel Malin. The only one that I can think of is getting Ramsey some more time to get on the pitch with Rashford, get on the pitch with Asensio and Rodgers and Yuri behind him, and try and create some cohesiveness for the stretch run here. That's all I got.
So this discussion actually just made me think of a question that we have not prepped for. We didn't put in the notes or anything. So this is coming off the
Hit me with it.
Do you think that Unai Emery would have rather sold Ollie Watkins right now than John Duran?
Yes.
Yeah.
Unequivocally, yes.
Yeah.
And we said this when the sale ultimately happened at the end of January. Villa were shopping both players around. There is enough credible evidence to say that Villa offered Ollie Watkins to Arsenal. It was not that Arsenal came knocking down Villa's door. Villa offered him to Arsenal, said 60 million is the starting conversation point, and Arsenal said, 40. And then John Duran gets an 80 million offer from Saudi Arabia, and off he goes. Yeah. But
classic Arsenal, by the way.
Classic Arsenal, by the way. But I do think that Unai probably would have been happier to move Ollie Watkins on and keep the young, promising John Duran and pair him with Rashford and all that kind of stuff.
And that's, yes. So that, like, do you think this move with Rashford and Asensio and all that, like, do you think Unai Emery sees the team better without Ollie Watkins in it in a lot of the starting 11s that he's cooking up? I mean, clearly that's the case because that's what he's doing.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting that he seems to be going with a more, I guess I'll say, positionless front 4. A lot more fluidity in it. Rashford can float left. Rodgers can go up top. Asensio can play beyond the striker, behind the striker. I do think that there's more that you can do. There's a little more pace. There's a little bit more, I guess, dare I say, kind of cutting edge than what you have with Ollie Watkins. People have been saying for the past couple weeks, like, open opportunity drops to Ollie Watkins, open opportunity drops to Marcus Rashford. Who do you feel more confident in putting it away? And despite the goal contributions, I say Marcus Rashford right now.
Despite the goal yesterday is another. I mean, it was lucky, but it was a really good finish.
It was a really good instinctive finish, and like I don't want all of this discourse to like take away what I think of Ollie Watkins, the player, what I think of Ollie Watkins in terms of the pantheon of great Villa strikers. The eye test says he's having a very, very down year. And for a player who's in his age 29 season, turning 30 next year, when we say Unai would have rather kept John Duran, like that's what you read in the newspaper. And when you take the ages into account and just the rate at which they were scoring goals and what you could kind of do with them positionally with the pace and the power and all that kind of stuff, like I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, you and I were both on the train of if one of them has to go, it should be Watkins. And that is not to disrespect Ollie Watkins. I don't mean that way either, because he's a great player. I mean, more so, we were both. It's good to have two good strikers. That was our larger point, and that's still the case. Now we might have three, at least for the time being, with Rashford on loan. But so I mean, I think to recap, this was an opportunity to rotate the squad in what's going to continue to be a very busy run of fixtures, and where we're going to need everybody to play well against Paris. coming up that we're going to talk about too, I was just a little surprised that we didn't make more changes.
Yeah, and I would like to see Mullen from the start because now he's also scoring, and that is exciting. I do wonder. We say this with every player. We said it with Costa. We said it with Tim. We've said it about Mullen. That there must still be something that he's not quite doing for Unai Emery off the ball with his runs, whatever. But to your point, you can see when he gets the ball at his feet, he's dynamic. He causes problems. I do see a little bit of that comparison that we read out in when he was brought in, of his comparison to Eden Hazard, and you do see a little bit of that in his game. So, really exciting. Other than that, I don't think that we need to analyze a 3-0 victory over Southampton all too deeply. No disrespect to them, but I've been saying for a while, I want us to, against a team beneath us, just put them to the sword, just end it and be comfortable with it. And this was exactly that.
Yep.
I don't see any bad points. I don't know if you do. The only other one that I'll add that I will give you credit for of texting me, Youri Tielemans with space to pick out a ball over the top might be one of the most dangerous plays in the Premier League.
I text you, was it the not this game, but the previous Premier League game, right? I think where I said, is Youri Tielemans with space to lift his head and pick a pass the most dangerous player in the Premier League? And we're trending toward yes. If we're not already
ball
there.
Over the top that led to the penalty, like, oh my god.
Yep. And I mean, the ball to Watkins was so perfectly weighted that Watkins just got a toe to it and scored. It's you as a defender have to close him down, even if he's at or near midfield. You've got to close him down, because if he's got space, he's going to find a ball and create an opportunity or an action that's going to lead to an opportunity. What a player he is. My goodness. And we got him for free. I just want to remind you.
Free. Now, with that, since we're moving on from this one, let's talk about the larger implication on the season. And this is going to be a little bit deeper of a dive. Our goal difference is finally positive. We're at a +3. We don't look awful compared to everyone around us. There's some 5s and 4s and whatnot. It does still, though, continue to be a problem with the teams that are above us. The closest to us is Forest in 3rd. They are at +13. So that's why you see today win for Newcastle, draws for win by City, draw by Chelsea, that we fall behind and we're back down to 7th place due to that issue with the goal difference with Chelsea. So there are 4 teams that we're looking at here, right? We're technically 3 points, but let's say 4 off of 3rd because of that. And I was curious, Chris, as to who we might feel like we have the best chance of catching. And so I'm going to read to you everyone's remaining fixtures, and we can talk about, who we should be targeting to try and get to that 5th or 6th place. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start in 3rd with Nottingham Forest. They have Spurs, Brentford, Palace, Leicester, West Ham, Chelsea. I will repeat what I said last week. Forest have only lost once against teams in the bottom half of the table. They've only won 4 times, 3 if you remove Villa from it, against teams in the top half of the table.
Mm-hmm.
I look at that. They have 1 game against a team in the top half of the table in Chelsea. And you can maybe throw in Crystal Palace in there as a team that's playing like a top half team, even though they got smacked by City yesterday.
Yep.
I feel like they're probably safe. What about you?
Probably. The only thing that I haven't looked at is the health, because that's been their biggest problem recently, because you can see the goals are not coming like they used to. And they've been struggling a little bit recently. So health is, I think, a determining factor there, but based purely on schedule alone, unless the fighting Ange Postecoglou's and Brentford can come out and surprise us, it looks to be a fairly easy run-in.
And I will say the Brentford one is also at Forest, where Brentford have been pinnacle away from home.
Well, and we've said it before, a lot of people do. City ground is a tough place to play. It's difficult.
So let's look at Newcastle. They have Crystal Palace on Wednesday before they visit us next weekend. Then they have Ipswich, Brighton, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Everton.
Tougher.
They have won, 5-6 in a row at this point. They seem to be a machine right now.
Yep. But a tough run in, though. A tough run in, right?
Yes and no. I mean, Crystal Palace at home, St. James Park, awful place to go. I chalk that up as a win for them. Us, we'll predict that later this week. Ipswich, you have to imagine they're going to win.
Yeah.
Brighton away, maybe. I mean, Brighton seemed to be kind of falling away a decent bit. Chelsea, again, at St. James Park, so they get that. Arsenal on the penultimate game of the season, are they going to have anything to play for at this point, or are they just going to be looking to the Champions League final?
Are they going to be looking at that? Are they going to be looking at that? You don't know. Maybe all they'll have is I'm just messing around. I love to poke Arsenal. It's my favorite thing.
And then Everton on the last day of the season, they're going to be safe. I mean, who cares?
Yeah.
Newcastle. Honestly, I'm looking at Newcastle potentially getting the third rather than falling down to us.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's I think they're going to be tough to catch. Not impossible, but tough. And they are playing extremely well right now. They might be playing their best football of the season at the right time.
Now let's look at Chelsea, who's not playing there. Actually, sorry, City are above them. Let's look at City.
Okay.
City.
Also not playing their best football of the season, though.
They did just win 5-2 yesterday, but before that, not great.
Right.
At Everton, home against us, home against Wolves, at Southampton, home against Bournemouth, at Fulham, and that's how they end the season.
Yeah. I don't see a loss for them, except potentially depending on, probably not. I will predict our game in the coming weeks, but I don't see a loss on that schedule at the moment.
No, me either. But you might have picked Bournemouth a little while ago, but they haven't won in 6 or 7. You're looking 3 weeks into the future, so maybe they figure it out by then. But I almost feel like more likely they're settling into mid-table obscurity.
Where they are,
yeah. So let's go to someone else not playing their best football, and that's Chelsea.
Definitely not playing their best football. Yeah,
they are at Fulham, home versus Everton, home versus Liverpool, at Newcastle, home versus United, and then they end at Forest, who will also have something to play for. That's who I'm targeting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are a couple of games that jump out there, right? You're home to Liverpool early May. You're away to Newcastle. We just talked about how difficult that is to play at St. James Park. And then away at Forest on the last day of the season. That is going to be, I think, a potentially pivotal match between everybody that's kind of bunched up around the middle of the table. So they seem right now like the most likely candidate for Aston Villa to catch.
Even at Fulham, they lost to Fulham earlier this year.
Yeah, but Fulham is such an easy trip, and I don't mean that to disparage them, but but you're right. Like, it's a good team.
If they got a draw there or lost, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yes. Yeah. You could see them dropping points. But like the big ones are Newcastle away, Forest away, Liverpool at home, because Liverpool, I think, are still going to need to pick up points because they've dropped a few here, and they've not played their best since really the new year. Even when they've been winning, it's not been like they looked beforehand, if that makes sense. It's been less dominant. You've seen some frustration from Arne Slot. So I do think that game, I think Liverpool are not going to take their foot off the gas until very near the end of the season, because now they have nothing else but the Premier League to focus on. So until they are mathematically impossible to catch, I think they're going to keep gunning for it.
And so you read between the tea leaves there. I think 5th is going to be very hard for Villa to come by. I think we're probably looking at a 6th or 7th place finish. I don't know if you feel similarly, but I will ask you, Chris, what we said we were going to ask every pod. What is Villa's best path to Europe for next season?
Well, I feel a little better than we did when we started asking this question a week or two ago because of the results that have come in, because it doesn't feel like it's all or nothing in one basket. I'm starting to think that the most likely path to Europe, and that is any European competition, is potentially the league right now because of our league form at the moment. And because I think that the FA Cup is a good option or a good opportunity. And it's become pretty clear that Emery's going to throw everything at that as well now, too, because I think he sees the potential for silverware and how important that would be for the club. But like, we could finish as low as 7th here and finish in Europe. And so that, like, it'd be a step back from where we are now down to the Conference League, but we'd still be in Europe.
Wouldn't 8th be Conference League this year? Because we get the 5th Champions League space.
Oh, yeah.
6, 7 would be Europa, and then
Europa. Yes, I'm sorry. We could finish 8th and be Conference League. My mistake. I meant, yeah. So that makes my point even more. Sure. That we have space here in the league because of the results we picked up. So I don't know. I still would love to see, the cup get lifted by Aston Villa and all that fun stuff, and we come back and beat PSG, 4-3 on Ag or something like that. And we just win the Champions League, but I don't think that's likely. So I'm going to go out on a limb there and say that's probably not happening. But so the league seems right now the most likely path. What about you?
I completely agree with you. The only point that I'll add, since you kind of articulated all my thoughts as well, is the fact that when we started doing this, the teams around us were playing very well and moving up the table. Bournemouth had won a bunch of matches in a row. Brighton was looking unstoppable. Fulham were kind of on their way up. And they've all started to, for a variety of different reasons, run out of gas, injuries, all that kind of stuff. And so they've started to fall away. And so now you see with 6 matches to go, we have a 6-point cushion over 8th, which is Fulham. 9th and Brighton, 6-point cushion. And we actually have now a +1 goal difference better than them. This is the one instance where that works in our favor. Bournemouth on 45. Are they going to make up 9 points in 6 games with the form that they're in? Haven't won in 5 plus. Probably not. You look at Crystal Palace playing well at 43 points in 12, maybe, but 11 points in 6 matches. I don't see a lot of those teams passing us short of us like losing the final 6 games entirely. I don't think that like either one of us thinks that that's going to happen at this point. So I feel like we're fairly close to locking up a Europa League spot at the least, which, yes, a step back. But again, as we said at the beginning of the season, Europa League, long run in Champions League, and a semifinal FA Cup appearance. Let's say it ends there. I'm not predicting that it's going to end at Crystal Palace, but like, let's say that's where it ends. It's a pretty good season.
Beginning of the year, everybody would take that, right? Beginning of the year, everybody takes that season. Yep. I agree.
Now, before we actually wind up playing those matches for the rest of the season, we do still have at least one more game in the Champions League, and that is what we are here to discuss. Preview leg 2 of PSG. And I think the easiest way to kind of combine our leg 1 analysis and leg 2 predictions, Chris, is for you to give me your cold water take on what seem to be 2 fairly divergent opinions on the first leg of this tie. When you look at all the commentary from Villa fans, you saw it in our own group chat, basically everyone says one of 2 things. Either 1, Villa honestly played great, had a great game plan, And we're very unlucky because they really just got beat by a couple worldies from PSG to lose. The other side says we were thoroughly outclassed and dominated in all aspects. Understandably so, PSG being the team that we previewed them to be. And there's really no hope for leg two. Where do you net out on this?
Well, closer to the first side than the latter, but like I would say that we didn't play great. There's no like you're never going to hear me say that we played great when we had 24% possession and completed like 300 less passes, or what felt like 300 less passes than our opponent.
600, Chris.
Yeah.
It literally 841 to 270.
All right, so I undershot it. So I cannot call that great. I can say it wasn't a bad game plan just because we are not as good as they are. There's no question about that. The thing about it is you can't expect to sustain that over two legs. So you're going to have to do something different in the second leg. I think we were a little unlucky to have conceded all three of those goals, but they're worldy. The two of them were worldies because they're world-class players. Like that, you can't like remove that from your discussion. And I just think that had we been able to keep it to a 1-goal deficit, it's a different discussion. But a 2-goal differential against a team like PSG is just such a big mountain to climb. But for to tighten this up a little bit and give you my actual cold water take, I thought Villa played well enough to keep it to a 1-goal deficit, but PSG are just too good. And that's how it ended up being a 3-1 win for them. And I think in the second leg, it's going to be really, really difficult.
So much like you, I'm in the middle here. I probably lean actually more towards the second, that we were thoroughly outclassed.
You're more negative, I'm more positive. Yin and yang. This is how we are.
Well, so here's the nuance though that I'll give you. Mm-hmm. We can be thoroughly outclassed because, to your point, they are all world-class players. We read through all the stats leading into this match of how good this PSG team is. And I can still also believe that we went into it with the right tactics, with the right strategy, and executed it to the best of our ability. They're just really effing good. And, to the point that you got at with the pass, they outshot us 29-7. Shots on target 10-2. On the flip side, if we end that game 1-1 and they're like, yeah, we outshot them 29-7, shots on target 10-2, they just happen to score on one of their two, they would feel pretty hard done by. 76% possession, as you said, 841 passes to our 271, pass accuracy 94% to 75%. Like, we were under it all night long. And then you look at the fact that, Hakimi, again, legislating toenail off when he goes 5-hole on Emi Martinez to potentially make it 4-1, or I guess would have been the fourth with the whatever. Anyway, yes, two worldies. The Kvaratskhelia one, honestly, I still would want Emi to do better at his near post. I don't like.
Was he screened though by an offside player? Was he screened by an offside player?
I don't think so.
That's the discussion. Yeah.
I don't think so, but maybe. Basically, what I come down to say is you and I went into this saying PSG is going to dominate the ball even more at home than they do away. They're going to shoot the ball way more than they do at home than they do away. We need to get out of this tied or 1-goal deficit, and that will be a success. And so I think that we had to, at risk of them getting in behind us and causing all kinds of problems, hole up and, like you and I said, get the ball over the top to Rashford and try and counter quickly, because we'll get one or two opportunities and we just need to make the most of them. We did. We didn't defend as great as we probably should have, but to come out of that and say that we deserved a 1-goal deficit or deserved to draw just because the goals they scored were incredible shots. I don't know that I fully subscribe to that belief. Like I just look at the totality of the game and I'm like, yeah, PSG deserved to win that game. They outplayed us.
Yeah, 100%. They did. I just the only point I would make, like I said, is they had 2 world-class goals because they have a lot of world-class players, and
Yep.
that is the difference in the game. I was frustrated by it. The third one felt like a particular backbreaker because then you knew you're going in with at least a 2-goal differential.
I was so fine ending that game 2-1. What do you think happened there? You think that we just kind of thought it was wrapped and shut off, or do you think that's just like a moment of magic that they put together despite our best efforts?
I think it was probably more likely the latter because I don't think anybody's switching off in a Champions League game in Paris.
I do think, and I know it's going to sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here when I say that had to be our approach. The difficulty with that approach is that I think it's incredibly mentally taxing to just be defending and be so laser focused on for 90 minutes. And so I don't know that it's like someone just sat on their laurels and was like, okay, yeah, we're good. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a moment of magic that took advantage of our mental fatigue, probably.
Yeah. So I'll ask you, what, if any, changes do you make? What would you do differently, or what would your plan of attack be going into Villa Park?
Well, you've got no other option but to go for it, right? Like losing 5-1 on aggregate, 6-1 on aggregate, 7-2 on aggregate, like it doesn't matter. You lost on aggregate.
Yep.
So the only hope is to throw everybody forward and try and put them under it a little bit more and play a little risky, potentially opening yourselves up to the counter. So, I expect Villa to I don't think that we're going to go like all out attack and try and dominate the ball like we did at Southampton. But I do think that you will see us, when we get the opportunities, probably send another man or two forward, be a little bit more deliberate about trying to capitalize. So in short, I suppose I still expect PSG to dominate the ball. I think they will have 60 to 65% possession at least. But from what I've read, what they don't do is necessarily change how they play. They're not going to sit back and give us the ball and say, break us down. We've got a 2-goal lead. What does that mean? It means that they'll still be potentially open at the back for us to get in behind them. So we're just going to need to make the most of those opportunities. And so I expect you will see a few more attacking players on the pitch this time from Emery. And I won't get into my lineup yet. I will ask you first. Do you agree with that, or do you see us doing something different?
Oh, I agree, because I don't know what else you can expect to do in the situation that we're in. You have no choice, like you said, but to try to get at least 2 goals back and not concede anymore. But you're in a position now where I think if Villa can score in the first half, kind of like they did in Paris, but doing it at home is going to be different. If you can get a 1-goal lead and Villa Park really gets going, all of a sudden maybe you can get another. So I think if PSG get the first goal, it's going to be a backbreaker, and I like that'll be the tie's over. It's a 3-goal differential. We're done. So that whoever scores first is really going to set the tone of the game, I think.
I think it's got to be first half too.
Oh yeah.
It can't be like 60th minute. It's got to be like first.
I have a
30.
feeling, given the way both teams are probably going to play, it's going to come in the first half, right?
Yeah.
So I think you're exactly right that you're going to send more people forward, which could lead to a problem the other way. But you have no other choice. And I don't know. We'll get in the lineups. I don't know what changes you can make, given what you're up against. and what you need to accomplish. But I do think that like we're going to see a little bit more. I think the way you put it was actually really, really good. Well put. A little bit more deliberate on the ball and a little bit more deliberate in getting forward to create chances, not just trying to fall into one. I mean, that's a bad way to put it because that's not, but not just sending one player forward on a break, which is really how we scored the goal against them in the first leg. So I think you're going to see a little bit more work from Villa. Not that we're going to dominate the ball, but that we're going to try and possess the ball a little more, particularly in the midfield and on the wing, where we can kind of try and stretch them a little bit. I think is what I would do. What Emery's going to do, I don't know.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to read into again the starting lineup at Southampton and what I know of the players, and so I think there's probably a slight difference between what I would do and what Emery is going to do. And I guess I'll go position by position in that. I would start in left back Ian Maatsen. I think considering he started and played the full match over the weekend, that probably means Emery is going with Luka Dean. But if you're going to leave yourself vulnerable at the back, I want Maatsen's pace to catch up to do that. And I also think that he, again, if we're talking about erring towards the offensive side of the ball, his dribbling ability, some of the problems that he causes teams is just more useful than Luka Dean crosses at this point. They're more speculative. A dribble to a cutback is a much more high value opportunity for me. Center backs, I've got Pau Torres and Ezri Konsa. Pau started in Paris. Emery trusts him, and again, his ability to play that one ball to create something is more valuable to me than Tyrone Mings. And then at right back, you've got Matty Cash because there's no other option. Kamara, ability to turn and press us forward. I want him in there. Yori, I think those two kind of set themselves at this point. And then in front of them, I am going with what was it again? Oh, so I have Rashford left, Asensio middle, JJ right, and then Ollie Watkins up top.
No Morgan Rogers.
Nope, sorry. Morgan Rogers on the right-hand side, not JJ Ramsey. That was the one that I was forgetting. I knew that I didn't have Ramsey starting, and I lost it in my head.
Okay.
Rashford, Asensio, Rogers, and then Ollie Watkins up top. So I am taking John McGinn and Jacob Ramsey out of the lineup again because I just want those three guys running at the defense trying to create something, and Asensio being the one to pull the strings behind them and potentially make a late run into the box. And then I hope that I have enough defensively to make the most of it. I worry a little bit about my left-hand side with both Maatsen and Rashford responsible for defending over there. You're getting no coverage from the middle in Asensio either, but I feel like it's a risk that we have to take. The only difference that I have is that I think Emery is going to start Ollie. I think that's part of the reason why he didn't start over the weekend. We need more strikers. But I think Asensio will go back to the bench, and I think that Emery will start John McGinn in the number 10 spot.
I think you're probably right, and I think he's going to start Luka Dean. I think I would start Luka Dean in this tie. Everything else I would keep as you. I don't want to go through it because everything else, those were the changes I would make as well. I actually thought I was going to have one on you by pulling Ollie out, but apparently I didn't. So I have the exact same starting formation. I like you don't think that Emery's actually going to do it. I think he's going to start John McGinn. I'm not sure he'll start Ollie. I'm not sure. I think he may go Ramsey and Rashford, but I'd like to see a really aggressive lineup because we need it. And I think at this point you have to put what are all of your best players on the pitch. at once as best you can, and I think that's the best lineup to get you there.
You got a score?
3-1 PSG.
Villa?
No.
So you think it's a
6-2 on
6-2
aggregate. Yeah.
I think we will have a better showing at home. Crowd will be behind them. But I still have 2-1 PSG.
Yeah. So you got 5-2. Slightly more optimistic than me. I was pretty down on Wednesday.
That's what I'm here for. You're the pessimist. I'm the optimist. No, honestly, what I will close this out by saying is, let's remember the fact that we are in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. A real statement today that all villains made was, man, we really need bottom half Manchester United to beat Newcastle so that Villa can qualify for a second straight year of Champions League.
Yep.
Like, wild.
Yep.
And so if this is, as you and I predict, our final match in this campaign, let's remember 1-0 versus Bayern. Let's remember the Juve draw. Let's remember dominating Club Brugge at Villa Park. Let's remember Bologna. The wins against Salzburg and Bologna, and you and I getting out there and the craziness of Celtic on the final day. And just appreciate the fact that we have seen in 6 years Villa go from the Championship to the Champions League.
Yep.
And you know, I'm hopeful that I will get to the pub for this one. I know Villa Park is going to be rocking, and I hope that, you know, win, lose, or draw, we show this team and the players the appreciation that they deserve for the run that they've taken us on, because it's been incredible. And, you know, whenever I get a chance to watch it, either live or after the fact, I am going to watch this one because I want to remember that feeling of Villa being here. Don't know when we'll get here.
I agree. And I do think that if this is the end, I think they'll get quite the ovation from Villa Park, because what a special run this was. Nobody, even the most optimistic Villa fan, said we're going to make it to the quarterfinal and get knocked out potentially by the team that's going to win the whole thing. You know, it's certainly one of the favorites too. So I agree. Can't say anything more than what you said. You said it perfectly. What a run. Yep.
Well, in that case, let's close it here. You and I will hopefully be back later this week with a recap of this run and a preview of our next Premier League match. And until then, sir, as always, up the Villa.
Up the Villa.
Hi, Mom and Dad.